Alright, this is my Morant analysis video. Just gonna be covering everything about his game we've seen thus far. So yeah, let's get right into it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below, and don't forget to leave a comment. Alright, so let's talk about Morant's offense. First off, we're gonna start off with his finishing. This guy relies on athleticism and finesse around the rim. He's just so lethal in the restricted area, and he kind of reminds me of a young Derrick Rose. He's so explosive, insanely quick, and just fearless. Morant has so many combinations and arrays of moves in the paint that include floaters, behind the backs, euros, scoops, etc. He often tends to lull his defender to sleep. Then he uses stutter steps and hesitations, in and outs to quickly accelerate and just get by his defender. And by the time someone meets him at the rim, it's most likely too late. His instincts are just on another level because he reads the defender's movement so quickly and adjusts and makes the right decision. If the defender takes away his right hand, he'll just do a crossover to the left and just weave right by him. Even when he's cut off in as he's driving, he's so persistent to get to the rim. He just uses his physicality and strength to get by the defender. Personally, I think Morant is a top 2 or 3 finisher in the league right now because of his craftiness. Because his craftiness is so insane around the rim. He's just one of the best at manipulating the ball mid-air as well. He often shows the defender the ball, causes him to jump early, then goes up, under, or around him with a reverse or another move. This is why he rarely ever gets blocked, because he's so good at protecting himself from the shot blocker because his movements are so uncanny and unpredictable. He can also finish with one hand on the ball, which allows him to glide and extend and finish through his defender. He uses offhand to shield the defender and create contact, and when the defender is too physical, it often results in an and one. Ja is excellent at finishing with both hands, and it's just so impressive to see this, especially as a rookie. Ja tends to create a lot of space to generate momentum, and he just gets to the rim as he rotates his body for maximum explosiveness, which is so helpful because it puts him in a protective position. Personally, I think the most impressive part of his finishing skills is his body control and touch, despite going at such a fast speed. An example of this is shown within his floaters, as no matter how fast he's going, he usually has a great touch on his floaters, and he can shoot them from essentially any position. Lastly, we gotta cover his hang time on his finishes. That 44-inch vertical of his gives him so many options and opportunities to score around larger players, and at times it's not even fair. You can see it in his finishes as he takes off so far away from the rim, which catches the shot blockers off guard, and his hang time allows him to either draw a foul on them or finish right through them. You can also see it in his dunks, whether through lobs, one-handed power slams, etc. Even his missed dunks are crazy. For all these reasons, it makes sense he's such an efficient scorer at the rim, as he finishes at a 60% clip at the rim. Honestly, I actually can't see any cons in his finishing. What I would advise for him is to develop a post-up game and bully smaller guards, kind of what Russell Westbrook kind of does too. Next, let's talk about his passing. His passing is great, especially within the interior, because that's where he forces most of the action. Morant puts so much pressure on the defense, particularly in pick and roll situations. Since the defense tends to be concerned about his floater, they overcommit to him, thus leaving Morant with all types of options, such as dump-off passes, lob passes, and more. Morant is also excellent at manipulating the defense with his eyes to get them out of position, and then he delivers a slick dime. His touch and feel for the game is there. His b-ball IQ is very high in these situations. He never really seems to force passes that are not there. He often waits for the play to fully develop and then makes the right pass. Now, in terms of improvements, Ja is a relatively small guard, so sometimes the defense just swallows his pass, and that leads to turnovers, which has to be reduced. Also, at times, he kind of hesitates on simple passes, giving up free points in the process. But, mistakes like these aren't major concerns, as you can easily iron out all these problems through watching film, and as you watch film, you learn from your mistakes, and through more playing time, you get more experience. So, I predict these mistakes will eventually, reduce over time. Now, let's talk about his shooting. Ja's shooting splits for the season were 48, 34, and 78. So 48% field goal, 34% from 3, and 78% from the line. For a guy whose primary strengths do not include shooting, I would say these splits are alright. His effective paint production really boosts his overall field goal percentage, and he's almost at 80% at the free throw line. The one thing I really want to talk about is his outside shot. 34% from 3 is respectable, but I don't know how much value to give on it, as he's only attempted about 3 threes a game, making about 1 per game on average. Looking at his mechanics, they look pretty smooth, and I just felt like he could have attempted more outside shots. I mean, that would really help the defense. That would really help him, as the defense would be on edge because they don't know where to go over or under the screen on him. So that would give Ja more options, and he'll be more effective. I think Ja is a pretty good shooter overall, so if he could end up upping those attempts per game, the defense won't be able to clog the paint on him all the time, like I said. So during the offseason, I expect him to keep shooting, and when he keeps shooting, he'll have more of a shooter's mindset, and hopefully he'll attempt more shots in game. Lastly, I'd also like for him to put on a bit more muscle in the offseason, maybe about 10 pounds. Not too much, so it doesn't affect his shot or his agility and speed. Now let's talk about his defense. In terms of the defensive end, I would say he's an average defender who has room for improvement. But, I mean, he isn't like Trae Young type bad. He isn't a liability, as he can hang in there with some of the better players in the league. And considering how much work he does for the team, I mean, look at his usage rate. It's 27%, which is massive for a rookie. So I guess you can cut him some slack. But defensively, that's definitely the biggest room for growth apart from shooting. So Ja's on-ball defense is pretty decent. Morant's a solid on-ball defender. His length, agility, and quick hands enable him to defend at the point of attack reasonably well. Even if the technique is poor at times, I mean, he has room to grow, let's just say that. I mean, defending one-on-one on the perimeter is among his better skills on this end of the floor, but his lack of awareness and strength leads to him getting hit and stuck on screens very often. He finds it hard to stay attached to his defender in the pick and roll. In terms of off-ball defense, let me just say this, it's kind of the same problem with Westbrook. They have the athleticism, and the tools and intangibles to be a great defender, but sometimes they're just a bit undisciplined on the defensive end at times. I mean, Ja often looks for steals, and he often tries to close in on passing angles, but that sometimes just leads to open threes, or when his man catches the ball, they can easily blow by him as he closes out lazily because he doesn't exactly have the length or the strength. Disrupt this man. I do respect his motor and energy on the defensive end, but at times the defensive focus is just too narrow. Lastly, I want to talk about his high impact plays. Morant has strong steal and block rates for his position, and he's managed this while maintaining a low foul rate, which is just as impressive. Sometimes he can just go up for a chase down block, which really energizes the team and can lead to runs. I mean, he has quick hands, solid length, and great explosiveness both vertically and horizontally. Moreover, his ability in the open court means that typically his steals turn into easy buckets on the other end, like I stated, which is great for a young team like the Grizzlies, as it really ups the morale on the team. So overall, Morant is an energy. Here's how I classify Morant right now. He's kind of an energy guy in defense on the defensive end with all the athleticism in the world, but he lacks the defensive IQ and smarts this season at least. He's still very young, and IQ is something that grows with experience. So, am I extremely worried? Well, no. He's heading to his second season. I mean, but where do I see him as a defender exactly in the future? Well, I don't think he'll ever be an all-defensive team performer, as his size and build is kind of against him. So far, he can only defend smaller guys in the perimeter, but in the future, I could see him end up guarding like opposition's backcourt guards pretty nicely while being a plus defender with smarts. That's essentially the peak of Morant defensively. I don't ever see him being like a top defensive player in the league. I mean, I can see him being a guy who's switchable, can take on opposing guards and can limit them like pretty nicely. But I don't see him like being an all-defensive performer. So yeah, so all in all, I mean, Ja's an extremely talented player with such great traits and intangibles of a future superstar, and I see him reaching that level sooner rather than later. He just came off a sensational rookie season, being named Rookie of the Year, and with the way he's going, I highly doubt that's the last major individual award he'll win. His offensive game is impeccable, and although his defense needs work, it's still somewhat acceptable. In terms of next season, I can see him being an all-star caliber player who might just not make the all-star team because, number one, their team record. I mean, the West is going to be stacked next season. So I don't exactly see the Grizzlies being like... Max I see them being next season, like by all-star break, is probably like the 7th seed or 8th seed. I don't see them being like a really top seed because the West is stacked. And number two, there's so many great players in the West, particularly the guards. I mean, Ja will have to knock off guards like Curry, Lillard, Doncic, Harden, etc. So it's going to be really tough. But if you're in the East though, I mean, I'll be way more confident in him becoming an all-star because obviously the East is not as hard. I mean, there are not too many like top players that are in the East currently. Apart from, okay, forgive me if I miss a couple guys, apart from like Kyrie, Durant, Tatum, a bunch of other dudes. I don't remember too many guys right now, but they'll come to me later. So essentially, with all this being said, who knows? You know, he might just make the all-star team. I mean, it is possible. I mean, if he does, it will just be one of the many and future sensational accomplishments that will happen and will happen in Ja Morant's career. So essentially, that's my analysis video on Ja Morant. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and this has been your boy, The Shot Clock, and peace.